For the latest on the battle, let's cross to our correspondent in Kyiv, Gulliver Cragg. Gulliver, what do we know about the current status of the fight over Kherson?
Well, the front line doesn't seem to have moved much, really, lately. It is about 25 kilometers from Kherson city if you're heading in a northwesterly direction. But if you're heading more to the east along the river, at its furthest point from Kherson city, it's still 100 kilometers away. By front line, I mean the border between the part of Kherson region that is still occupied by Russian forces and the part that Ukrainian forces have managed to claw back. The strike on these power lines that led to the outage in Kherson city and several other towns and villages around it was out on that easterly direction along the Dnipro river. It was power lines in Russian-occupied territory, which would suggest that it's probably more likely that it was a Ukrainian strike. But it's worth remembering that we're talking about an area where there is active combat going on, military activity every day, even if the front line doesn't move very much. So it's not really comparable to the kinds of power outages that have been seen across the rest of Ukraine, which have been the result of a very deliberate campaign of long-range strikes by Russian missiles and also these Iranian-made drones on Ukraine's electricity infrastructure. But the situation in Kherson, though the front line isn't moving much, remains difficult for the Russians, at least on the right bank, the northwestern bank of the Dnipro river, because this is a very wide river and the Ukrainians have pretty much disabled the main bridge across it in Kherson city, the Antonovsky Bridge, and they keep hitting also the road that runs across the Kakhovka Dam. Apparently it was hit again by a HIMARS strike. That's according to the Russians, who accuse the Ukrainians of trying to destroy the dam. I think what they're trying to do is just to damage the road so that the Russians can't use it for their logistics, and their logistics are clearly facing great difficulties due to this Ukrainian control of the Ukrainian strikes on the bridges, on the road crossings on the river, and so they're finding it difficult to keep themselves supplied. That's what's leading to so much speculation about them maybe withdrawing, but there's very, very conflicting information, and I think very deliberately actually conflicting signs being sent by the Russians about what their intentions really are.
Okay, Oliver, let's zoom out a little bit. Can you tell us about the status of Russian forces in Ukraine and threats to other regions?
Well, while all eyes are very much on Kherson because it's this strategic target for the Ukrainian counteroffensive that they themselves have talked up so much, the most intense fighting in Ukraine actually is still going on in the Donbass. In Donetsk region mainly, where the Ukrainians are defending against a Russian onslaught that's been going on for 4 months now to try to take mainly the city of Bakhmut, which is the third largest Ukrainian-held city in Donetsk region, and several other towns around there. And many Ukrainian soldiers have described the situation there as absolutely hellish. I think the losses are high on both sides. The damage to the city of Bakhmut is very, very significant. Journalists who have visited it have said that it's on its way to turning into a new Mariupol or a new Severodonetsk, referring to those towns that earlier this year were so badly destroyed by the Russian attacks. But so far the Russians aren't advancing there. They haven't managed to take any significant territory, and they don't seem to be able to take Bakhmut. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian counteroffensive is also carrying on in a northeasterly direction, moving into Luhansk region, that other of the two regions that make up the Donbass, also quite slowly, but I think perhaps a little bit faster than how fast they're advancing in Kherson region. The next major target for the Ukrainian counteroffensive is the town of Svatove in the northwest of Luhansk region.
Gulliver Cragg, our correspondent in Kyiv, thank you so much for that update.